In the first video I ever posted on this channel, I mentioned that Filthy Frank is my favourite YouTuber of all time. I started watching Filthy Frank back in 2012 when he used the channel Disaster Music. At the time, I believe his most popular video was 100 completely accurate world accents, which has since been deleted and thankfully re-uploaded on another channel. I remember back then how surreal it was to see Filthy Frank post the Harlem Shake, originally just as a skit in a compilation video, and then watching it spread like wildfire all around the world. As you likely know, Filthy Frank hasn't uploaded a video in almost 3 years now. The man behind the character, George Miller, is now instead focusing on making music under the name Joji. I enjoy Joji's music and I'm happy for the success he's finding in his new career. I'm not holding out for Filthy Frank to return, nor do I feel betrayed that he left. This man tortured himself to provide hilarious content for free for several years, so he doesn't owe anyone anything. That doesn't mean I don't miss Filthy Frank's content though. Today I want to discuss what made his videos so special, whether or not it would even be possible to make those videos today, and who, if anyone, is filling the void that Filthy Frank left. Filthy Frank posted a lot of edgy content. He shamelessly embarrassed himself in public, he played with dead animals, and he cooked and ate hair and vomit. He took baths with dwarves, he pimped out a disabled man's wheelchair, and he voluntarily got waterboarded whilst completing the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. If Filthy Frank had a funny idea for a video, he made it. He never hesitated to post something for fear of causing offence, because causing offence was the whole point of his channel. But Frank's comedy wasn't just about doing or saying outrageous things for shock value. He had a knack for calling out annoying trends and people on the internet in a way that was pretty unique at the time. The origin of this content can be found on Disaster Music in the form of short, crude videos like I hate stupid girls or I hate fat people, but it evolved from there. People who are cringy and pretentious about music, people who are too obsessed with the shows they watch, people who waste their time debating pointless shit online. Filthy Frank mocked all of them.
Like over here at the Filthy Frank Show, we support prejudice equality. Everyone gets shit.
He literally posted a video titled People I Hate, which was a rapid-fire critique of different cancerous behaviours. Additionally, Frank often made original songs to accompany these commentary videos, or he would tie them in with the ongoing Filthy Frank lore that ran throughout the channel.
I know your secret. You're not the real Frank.
You're tripping, dog. You're tripping.
That's why you don't want the Peace Lords to find out.
There will be a war.
Yes, alongside the rants and the shitposts, there was an epic anime-like story unfolding where Frank and Pink Guy were battling an imposter Filthy Frank and the Dark Lord Chin Chin. YouTube was Filthy Frank's platform, but I almost hesitate to call Filthy Frank a YouTuber because it's not fair to other YouTubers, specifically in the commentary genre. Filthy Frank almost seemed to be above YouTube. He never made videos mocking other creators, and he never got embroiled in YouTube drama. He was one of a kind. For example, Frank collaborated with H3H3 Productions and iDubbbz back when their channels were much smaller. H3H3 and iDubbbz were regarded, at least in their prime, as two of the best commentary channels on the platform, and I did enjoy their content. But when it comes to making fun of a trend or parodying an annoying type of person, I don't think Ian or Ethan were ever as funny or creative as Filthy Frank. Additionally, Ian and Ethan have both, at times, exposed somewhat unsavoury aspects of their characters. They've been unable to handle criticism or they've acted hypocritically. That was never the case with Filthy Frank. Running throughout Frank's content was an obvious level of self-awareness. In the People I Hate video, Frank points out that his own fanbase can be just as annoying and embarrassing as any of the groups he criticises.
Now, I don't go outside for obvious reasons like this, and this.
He also addresses the fact that he has no moral or intellectual high ground over anyone else on the internet.
You know what I also hate? People who get way too preachy about the things they hate online. People who just talk about the shit that they hate like everyone cares or something? What the fuck is up with that? Huh? No? What are you gay?
Filthy Frank was refreshing because people who make commentary videos, by their very nature, often come across as having something of an ego. Whether just criticising content or actually making fun of the people who make said content, there's usually a sense that commentators are looking down on the subject of their videos. It was clear when Filthy Frank roasted people that although he looked down on others, really he knew he was right there in the gutter with them, and he knew people were looking down on him, he just didn't care. Of course, what made Filthy Frank so different to other YouTubers was the fact that Filthy Frank was a character. George Miller performed as Filthy Frank in the same way that he performs now as Joji. Filthy Frank was clearly not a real person. The character was intentionally crafted to be a deplorable reprobate. To this day, the description on the Filthy Frank YouTube channel reads as follows. Filthy Frank is the embodiment of everything a person should not be. He is anti-PC, anti-social, and anti-coof. He behaves and reacts excessively to everything expressly to highlight the ridiculousness of racism, misogyny, legalism, injustice, ignorance, and other social blights. He also sets an example to show how easy it is in the social media for any zany material to gain traction/followings by simply sharing unsavoury opinions and joking about topics many find offensive. There is no denying that the show is terribly offensive, but this terrible offensiveness is a deliberate and unapologetic parody of the whole social media machine, and a reflection of the human microcosm that social media is. That description seems to imply that the Filthy Frank character is one big, long-running piece of satire, and that the purpose of Filthy Frank is to mock real people who are unironically as ignorant and reactionary as the Filthy Frank character is. But to me, there's some obvious dissonance here. I almost feel like this description exists as a shield for George Miller to use against people who don't like his content or don't think its offensive nature is justifiable. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this description is untrue. I understand Filthy Frank is a character. I understand that Filthy Frank saying or doing outrageous things is not a reflection of George Miller's beliefs. And yes, Filthy Frank's popularity certainly proves that being a loudmouthed, attention-seeking contrarian is an easy way to gain attention online. But that's sort of my point. I don't think most of Filthy Frank's fanbase view these videos in the same way as their creator does. People liked Filthy Frank for his careless edginess. People liked it when he made offensive jokes and did horrific things for comedic purposes. When Filthy Frank made fun of weeaboos or vegans, most people laughed because they also found weeaboos and vegans to be cringy and annoying, and because Filthy Frank made some good points about why they are so insufferable. They weren't just laughing at Filthy Frank, they were laughing with him. They weren't laughing at how well Filthy Frank highlighted the ridiculousness of prejudice and intolerance. A lot of the time, they were just laughing at the prejudice and intolerance. And again, that's not the worst thing in the world. I strongly believe that laughing at awful, offensive jokes doesn't mean you're in agreement with the literal sentiment of said jokes. There is a middle ground. Take Pimp My Wheelchair as an example. It's a 20-minute video in which Filthy Frank repeatedly mocks a disabled man in a wheelchair.
What? This thing doesn't seem safe.
Shut the fuck up.
You electrocuted yourself, man. What do you want me to do, man? Trying to kill me?
Maybe it'll shock you into walking again, huh? Just shut the fuck up.
My life is in your fucking hands, man.
It's not much of a life, that's for sure. Let's get in the car.
I think it's a funny video. I didn't walk away from it thinking, wow, Filthy Frank's over-the-top abuse towards that man was a clever satire of people who make fun of disabled people. I found it funny because of how fucked up and offensive and politically incorrect it was. But that doesn't mean I think abusing and mistreating disabled people in real life is okay or funny. In fact, the exact opposite is true. The video is funny to me specifically because I know that what Filthy Frank is doing is shocking and taboo and not okay. It's the same with virtually any type of offensive humour. And George Miller is aware that people enjoy his channel for this reason too. I omitted a line from the channel description that I read out earlier because at the end is the sentence, or maybe I'm just fucking retarded. You can enjoy Filthy Frank on a variety of different levels. This is something that got covered a little more in depth during George's appearance on the Needle Drop podcast a number of years ago.
Shit that it's impossible to take it seriously, you know? And that's the point. I'm kind of making fun of all racism and all that by being overly racist with this character or whatever, you know what I mean?
The character kind of seems like, you poking fun at ignorant and racist trolls on the internet. There are moments in your videos where almost advertently, you make your audience laugh at a joke that is racist. It seems like few and far between are the people who are watching who are like, oh, he's just playing a character of an internet troll. Ha ha ha, really good job. Whereas it seems like your audience has amassed tons of internet trolls who kind of see you as this internet troll messiah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine too. I mean, the show could go both ways, whatever floats their boat. I'm happy to cater to what people want.
The issue now is that George Miller's online persona is no longer Filthy Frank, it's Joji. When he was posting videos as Filthy Frank, it would have been impossible to get him cancelled because the whole point of the character was so obviously to be over the top and offensive. The problem now is that Filthy Frank is in the past, and if there's one thing that entitled mobs on Twitter love doing, it's digging up stuff from the past, taking it out of context, and using it to attack people in the present day. There was recently an attempt to cancel Joji when a number of people discovered for the first time that he was Filthy Frank. One specific thing that caused offence was the Pink Guy song White is Right, in which the N-word is used with a hard R. This song was controversial even back when it was dropped. I clearly remembered that it was the only track from the Pink Season album that was removed from Spotify. It's also not available on the Too Damn Filthy YouTube channel, where the rest of the tracks from the album are uploaded individually. The irony about this song being particularly controversial is that White is Right is a song that mocks white people, not black people. There's one verse from the perspective of an ignorant, incestuous southerner who uses the N-word, then there's a verse from an entitled upper-class character who raps about being able to get away with crimes due to his white privilege. In the case of this song, the description on Filthy Frank's channel is absolutely correct. The song is over the top and offensive to parody these awful types of white people. The actual message of the song is pro-social justice, but the N-word is used, and the teenagers who get up in arms about this stuff on Twitter aren't great at critical thinking, so Joji got called out for this song being racist, even though its clear intention is to make fun of racists. My only hope is that the legacy of Filthy Frank doesn't cause so much detriment to Joji's career that his old channels end up being deleted, but I don't think that's likely to happen. For one thing, George Miller probably knows that covering this old stuff up would alienate a large part of his audience. As much as his audience has grown, I have to imagine that Filthy Frank fans still make up a significant portion of it. Additionally, deleting controversial Filthy Frank videos will not make them go away. People will re-upload them, and the people on Twitter who found them offensive will not stop finding them offensive. But I'm hopeful that it won't come to this anyway. Joji appears to be doing pretty well for himself despite these skeletons in his closet. Will Filthy Frank ever make a return? I doubt it. George Miller has moved on. He has indicated not only that he stopped enjoying making his old content, but that he is physically unable to do so, potentially due to the strain that doing the Filthy Frank voice puts on his vocal cords. The other question is, could Filthy Frank be successful on YouTube in 2020? That's a difficult one to answer. If Filthy Frank made a comeback, he would probably get more views than ever before. I don't think there's any chance his videos would be monetized these days, nor would they be promoted by YouTube. Filthy Frank is essentially the antithesis of everything YouTube wants a creator to be on its platform. I also can't imagine many brands wanting to sponsor a Filthy Frank video, and even if they did, I can't imagine it working very well with Filthy Frank's content. It wouldn't feel right at all. Of course, there are other avenues through which you can make money on YouTube, like Patreon and merchandise, but I'm sure that making music and touring as Joji is much more lucrative and enjoyable than returning as Filthy Frank would be. On that basis, I have a few recommendations for active content creators if you miss watching Filthy Frank as much as I do. The obvious one is Cold Ones with Max and Chad. For the most part, Max and Chad have retained the same charm that they had years ago. They say whatever they want, they get fucked up, they don't hesitate to harm themselves for the sake of a joke, and their videos are incredibly well produced. As entertaining as some of their interviews are, I find the videos where it's just the two of them playing drinking games or designing merchandise just as enjoyable. Cold Ones might be my favourite channel on YouTube at the moment. Besides that, there are a few newer YouTubers who deserve a mention. If you want a taste of the pure your unadulterated autism that Filthy Frank brought to the table, I recommend watching Too Mad. His videos are even more schizophrenic than Filthy Frank's. He seems willing to say or do almost anything that he thinks will be funny, and again, his editing is on another level. Anthpo is another creator I've been enjoying recently. His content is moving in a slightly different direction now, but his videos from around a year ago have some classic Filthy Frank energy to them. He's much less offensive than Frank, but just as willing to embarrass himself in public. And finally, Offcanny is one of the most beautifully chaotic YouTube channels I've ever seen. They're in the midst of a bit of a lull at the moment, but they have plenty of great videos out there. In particular, I would recommend We Bought a Car, We Became Strippers, and Shock Collar Ballroom. It's the hardest I've laughed at a YouTube channel in years. It's worth mentioning that there's also someone just trying to be Filthy Frank called TV Filthy Frank 2. This channel is of no interest to me. I'd rather watch someone who captures the spirit of Filthy Frank's old stuff or has a similar vibe or sense of humour than someone who just dresses up as Filthy Frank and does a decent Filthy Frank impression. If I wanted that, I would just go watch Filthy Frank's old videos.